Good evening, ghouls and fiends, and welcome once again to the Ministry of Horror. I'm your host, Tez, and I'm joined by like an alumni guest at this stage, all the way back from episode 2. We're now on episode 12, I think.
Is it really?
I think so, yeah. Who'd have thought it would last this long, eh, Pete?
Well, yeah.
I'm joined by Peter Goddard.
Hello, good evening. Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks for coming on board. Always appreciated.
Thank you.
How have you been?
I've been very well, thank you. How have you been?
I've been very well, thanks.
Good.
Excellent. And that's the show.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. So we've got the Gruff and Bericles are both in the chat. Good evening, guys.
Hello.
Well, where do we start? We've got quite an action-packed episode this evening. Got news, got reviews, and then we've got our main discussion, which this evening, Peter and I are going to be talking about the video nasty era, focusing on the some particular films of that have had subsequent modern or modernish remakes. Doing a little mini season on remakes, and I thought this would be a good era to start on because video nasties are notorious with horror, and also me and Peter make a small amount of change on video nasties with a little company we run.
We make money off this company. We have a company, yeah.
I'll make the books look like we make money. That, of course, is Vipco, a notorious brand from British horror releases.
This is Vipco's very first ever physical release back in 1980-something. Zombie Flesh Eaters on a VHS.
Look at that, VHS. I bet if there's any Gen Z watching, they'll be thinking, what is that massive block that he's got in his hand? That's a VHS.
It's the strong uncut version. These are highly collectible these days, as you can see by my shelves.
Yeah, if there's anyone that can talk video nasties, I think I've got the right person on today's show.
I hope
so. So we got some. First off, got to give a shout out to Andy and the Retro Chat. That was on about 15 minutes ago. Another great show from Andy. Also a great show this past weekend, Lee and Lawrence on the Ministry of Slam. And I've got it scheduled, Bericles, to listen to probably tomorrow during work. But today, Bericles is his show, The Turner Years. The second episode dropped on podcast feeds. So definitely check that out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Gruff, so big and bulky, feels cool to collect. Initially, I forgot that you were talking about the VHSs. I was like, what is this going? Bruce Todd on the YouTube, watching on YouTube, says, my copy of Shockwaves is Vipco. Need to get more classic Vipco. Obviously, get classic Vipco, but if you head to vipcovaults.com, you'll get new classics hopefully give us some money. So starting off, excellent. Fran the Cannon said, we used to have a van come round our village where you could rent VHS from. A friend's dad, he used to run a company that was a van going around with VHSs.
Really?
And I used to go to the local, before it was a Tesco and before it was a One Stop, there was a shop called M&W's, and the first VHS cover I ever remember seeing and thinking that looks so cool was Stephen King's It, the 1990 miniseries. The classic Pennywise on the cover is, Tim Curry's Pennywise.
Yeah. I mean, you're a bit younger than me, aren't you, Darren? So you probably don't quite... Do you still remember, like, NBC and Virgin and all that in Salisbury and all the VHS tapes and Beyond Horror on the Warner Brother label and...
I remember the shops, but I think by the time that I was old enough to have some pocket money and get my own things, DVDs were coming out. So I remember for Vipco, I always remember the black cased with all the skulls across the top DVD covers. But also they used to have these TV ads, like QVC, but there'd be one saying the Vipco Scream Time Collection. Order now for 3 installments of $19.99 plus
buy the whole collections on
£30 postage.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was born in '84, so I was at the time when the Video Recording Act came in and sort of like put an end to all these preset tapes. When video first came out, any company could put out a film for the first sort of like 5 years without having to get a BBFC certificate and stuff. And so you got all these kind of like bizarre cult kind of like horrors and strange films from abroad getting put out just by all these little underground little sort of backstreet sort of like distributors like Vipco and Go and Replay and stuff, and it was a great. I mean, I wasn't alive when it happened, but reading about it now, it's like it would have been a great time to be able to go out and see all these things come onto your local shelves and in little independent video stores and things.
Well, I mean, Bericles makes a great point in the chat. He says VHS cover art is better than DVD stuff. Everything seems to be so sanitized today.
Yeah.
And the Gruff says 100%, especially the horror covers. I mean, I remember in my ute going and picking up films either to rent from Blockbusters or to buy, like X rentals.
Yeah.
Purely based on the like the artwork, like the VHS DVD, early DVD artwork.
I mean, look at this SS Experiment Camp. I mean, would you get away with that?
Probably not. We might not get away with that on YouTube, so maybe drop the case.
It'll be on YouTube.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Cut that.
You know, it's a piece of history that is. That's like an antique. It's like first edition books collecting videos.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of mentioned before on the show that these days, not to be the old man shouting at clouds, but these days, you kind of, where there's everything on streaming, there's the good element that you've kind of got a whole host of films at your fingertips, but at the same point, there's almost kind of too much, and with artwork being so sanitized, as Bericles says, these days, it's tough to really see anything that's eye-catching unless you're looking for a particular film.
Well, I mean, like when you used to go to the video store, you could spend not hours, but you could spend a lot of time, because when you rented out that one tape, you were stuck with that one tape to watch. So you'd spend a long time looking at all the artwork, reading all the blurbs, and then you finally made that choice of that one film that you're going to take home and you're going to watch, and you'd always watch it from start to end because you've committed to it. Whereas with streaming, you can start the first 5 minutes, don't like it, try to find something else, don't like it, find something else. So there was a sort of a commitment and to sticking with that choice of that one film that you paid the money for, and that's what you've got to watch now.
You want to get your money's worth, even if it turns out that you're stuck with some god awful tripe. Right, let's get into some news from the week. As always, I get my news from bloodydisgusting.com. It's good stuff. Make sure you check it out. I don't want to be constantly stealing their headlines for content for the show. But we've got 4 horror movies releasing this week, and also for Billy Bob. I think it's Billy Bob Briggs. I've already forgotten his name. The guy that does the Last Drive-In series on Shudder. Right. That is returning.
All right.
If you've never seen it, I would recommend. Quite often on Shudder, they have deals, like you can get it for 99p a month for 3 months or whatever. He does these great shows where he'll feature a particular film, and he'll often have guests on that maybe are involved in the film, discussing production issues with the film, its release, and any kind of funny story. So it's a real informative look. And he does things from Hellraiser to like Blood Feast, quite a variety really, and you can find some gems on there. So I'm definitely going to be quite interested to see what he's got on the new series. So in regards to new films coming out, there's an indie horror called Dead by Midnight Y2 Kill, which has been released on VOD outlets today. It's a horror anthology from Indican Pictures starring Kane Hodder and Bill Moseley.
He turns up a lot, doesn't he? Well, Kane Hodder, doesn't he?
We got Kane Hodder. People know him as Jason from some of the later Friday films, and Bill Moseley, Chop Top in Chainsaw 2, and also the Rob Zombie House of a Thousand Corpses. I can't remember the character's name in it, but it's been in those films. The preview says, featuring 5 different terrifying tales, the film is full to the brim with chilling shocks, plot reveals, and deadly twists around every corner. Gonna be honest, doesn't really tell me much about it other than it's an anthology. But
nothing wrong with an anthology. If you don't like one story, there's always a good one coming up next. Or
hasn't there recently been quite a good anthology film released, Peter?
I don't know. Like a Vaults of Terror one, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think
it's like a Vipco, wasn't it? A Vipco Vaults of Terror.
A Vipco release, Vipco Vaults of Terror, available now, vipcovaults.com.
I would pick up a copy, but I don't think I've got one.
There's one in
not to hand.
my cupboard is basically where the stock is, and
I think my garage is where the stock is. So.
But check it out. There's great artwork. There's four or five great shorts in it.
you
I got it together. Yeah, I edited it. But check it out, honestly, please.
Are you in it?
I am in it.
I think you're in it. Right?
I play, I guess, a serial killer. We allude to that. But I won't say any more. I don't want to give spoilers away.
Is there spoilers?
So next,
we have a lot of fun making these things and putting these films out, don't we? So
yeah, I mean,
it's very much a passion project. Isn't
a lot of talented filmmakers, and I toyed whether to mention. So, talking about Vipco, as we have done last year, we started in our inaugural year of running it a online film festival, the Vipco Vaults of Terrorfest. We did a live stream at the start of this year on YouTube. Really good fun. We had some great films, shorts and features submitted, some winners. We've now started the next one, Vipco Vaults of Terrorfest 2023, part 2. We've had our first submission, Peter.
Really?
Is
it good?
It's a German short film in the extreme horror genre.
Okay.
There's a penis in the first 5 seconds.
Well, why haven't you said this?
Bloodied underwear. I mean, it's really, it's our first submission, so.
And it'll be going in the finished product, won't it?
It'll be the winner. Because why not? Exactly, Pericles.
Why not?
Next up in the news from Saban Films is The Aviary, a psychological thriller featuring Malin Ackerman, who was in The Final Girls, a really good comedy horror, Lorenza Izzo of The Green Inferno, and Chris Messina of Birds of Prey. Comes to theatres, digital and on demand Friday, April 29th. Malin Ackerman and Chris Messina star in the twisted journey of two women's desperate flee to escape the clutches of Skylight, an insidious cult. Lured in by the promise of freedom in the isolated desert campus called the Aviary, Gillian, played by Ackerman, and Blair, played by Izzo, join forces to escape in hopes of real freedom. Looks like there's a lot of fear and paranoia involved in this. There's a trailer on the Bloody Disgusting list, which I will drop in the chat if people want to check it out. It looks decent. I mean, Malin Ackerman's a quality actress. I mean, anything with a cult, Peter, generally sort of tickles my interest.
Cults, woods, devils
in the woods available.
Yes, occult stuff. Yeah, I mean.
Oh dear, we'll stop shilling the company. Next up, Hannah Burkham's modern horror fairy tale Hatching is on the way from IFC Midnight. Comes to theatres April 29th ahead of a digital VOD release on May 17th. It stars a 12-year-old gymnast, Tinja, played by Siri Solali. I apologise again for my pronunciations on this show. I'm always butchering it. There is a desperate to please her image-obsessed mother whose popular blog, Lovely Everyday Life, presents their family's idyllic existence as manicured suburban perfection. One day after finding a wounded bird in the woods, Tinja brings its strange egg home, which there's a picture here, which again you can see in the link. It's an enormous egg, like the size of the girl, nestles in her bed and nurtures it until it hatches. The creature that emerges becomes her closest friend and a living nightmare, plunging Tinja beneath the impeccable veneer into a twisted reality that her mother refuses to see.
What?
I mean, the trailer's there. It looks weird. If it comes up on something that I already pay for, I'll give it a watch.
If it's free to
you, if it's free to me, I'll give it a watch.
If you're in the video shop on a Friday night and it's 1987, you're going through your videos and you saw that, you'd commit to that, wouldn't you?
I mean, yeah, if that's what all that was there.
You pay your £2 or whatever, and you'd rent it out for the weekend.
I'd rent it out. I'd consider my life choices. 100%. And then rounding out the new films, there's The Curse of Professor Zardonicus, which is also coming out on Friday on video on demand, such as Apple TV, Vudu, Amazon, and Google Play. It's from director Gabriel Theus, and it stars Alec White, Gabriel Theus, and Kat Thomas. When college student Greg is searching for a thesis topic, he finds an interesting story on Facebook. Another student, Darren, explains to Greg that he's been assaulted on campus and wishes to tell his story through a documentary instead of the police. Okay. Darren recruits Greg to help him prove the existence of an urban legend, Professor Zardonicus. Greg agrees, and he needs to complete his thesis project. I'm going to stop there because it kind of a blurb should kind of hint at the general story without kind of going into the intricate details of what sounds like the opening 30 minutes. So that comes out at the end of this week. The Curse of Professor Zardonicus. I probably won't watch that one, I'm going to be honest.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's. I mean, yeah.
It's a film.
It's a film. I mean, I don't watch many films these days, so I have to be very selective about like what I commit my very limited spare time to. So
yeah, probably not one for me. Not one for me. Next up on the news, The Black Phone, which does look quite interesting. The graph says about that last one, the title sounds like a Harry Potter film. It does actually, yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe J.K. Rowling's working in.
She's done offending trans people, and now wants to do another Harry Potter because maybe the money's drying up. Who knows?
Maybe.
The new trailer for The Black Phone shows off masks designed by Tom Savini and his team. Tom Savini is one of the godfathers of gore for his effects work. He also directed the remake. Talking of remakes of Night of the Living Dead.
He did,
which is pretty decent.
I think.
Yeah, very very early 90s.
1990s, wasn't it? Yeah.
So he has designed the masks for the new film coming out soon, starring Ethan Hawke, called The Black Phone. I think it's a Scott Derrickson film who directed Sinister.
Okay.
It's an adaptation of Joe Hill's short story. Now, Joe Hill, for those that don't know, is Stephen King's son and an author in his own right. He's done some great stuff like Heart-Shaped Box, Nosferatu, but spelt like a license plate. So I will again I have dropped the link in there. It's basically, have we got a blurb on it? Director Scott Derrickson returns to his terror roots and partners again with the foremost brand in the genre, Blumhouse, with a new horror thriller. Finney Shaw, a shy but clever 13-year-old boy, is abducted by a sadistic killer and trapped in a soundproof basement where screaming is of little use. When a disconnected phone on the wall begins to ring, Finney discovers that he can hear the voices of the killer's previous victims, and they are dead set on making sure that what happened to them doesn't happen to Finney. I mean, the trailer looked pretty decent. When the first trailer that I've seen, I haven't seen this new one, but I enjoyed Sinister for the most part.
I enjoyed Sinister. Yes, so did I.
There was a couple of bits that I thought were a little bit too on the nose in terms of jump scares. And I think
jump
it's near
scary,
the end.
yeah. But I liked the. I mean, I like the found footage aspect of it, and
it's quite an original story. It's not just a case of moving into a place, but it's a case of once you move out, that starts the whole cycle. So
I did quite like Sinister.
Yeah, The Black Phone. I don't actually. Has it got a release date set? I know it's this year, June 24th. It comes to theaters.
Okay.
So I'll definitely be checking that out.
I'll keep an eye out for that one. That one I probably would commit my very limited time to.
Now, here's something that may be of interest to you. David F. Sandberg is directing a genre thriller called Below for Netflix.
Right.
He, of course, directed Lights Out, Annabelle Creation, which I do think is the best of the Annabelle films, and Shazam. And he's headed back to the horror genre with Below, a mysterious thriller that was announced by Deadline. Greg Weidman and Jeff Tock wrote the spec script, which has been acquired by Netflix for Sandberg to direct. And James Wan of The Conjuring and Annabelle and that whole universe, he's on board to produce the film. There isn't really much in terms of... It's just been announced, really, so we don't really have any script details. But, I mean, he is a director that I have a lot of respect for, not just because... the films he's made, but you introduced me, Peter, actually to his YouTube channel.
Pony Smasher, brilliant, one of the best YouTube channels for people getting into filmmaking, because he's very down to earth. He's one of those people that he just made these films with his wife in his house just because he loved making films, and he just shot them all in his little black magic cameras and did all the effects himself, worked out how to do it all himself in using DaVinci Resolve and using Blender for the 3D effects and things. And he just made these films because he loved making these films. And it just so happened that Lights Out started to spread around on places like Reddit and YouTube and went viral. And then suddenly he was picked up by these Hollywood studios to do the feature length film version of it. But even whilst he was doing that and making films like Annabelle Creation, he was still making these little short films with his wife in his house, and then uploading them to his YouTube channel and doing little behind the scenes making ofs of how he did them all, and just like filming these things with his little camera and just doing the sound effects himself, and just it's really inspiring, and it just shows that he's just someone who has a lot of talent and just a massive sort of love for filmmaking and the genre. So
yeah, I mean, if anyone hasn't seen it, he the short that Peter mentioned for Lights Out, it looks so clean and polished, and all of the short videos that he's put on YouTube have this. When I say polished, I don't mean over polished, but they don't look indie. Like they've got they look very professional.
Yeah, really, yeah.
And he does these videos where he just talks about the process of doing it, and it makes it look so simple. It's quite inspiring, because you sort of think, so I could achieve those sort of shots.
I've got that same camera, and he's just recording the sound with a microphone himself, making all the Foley sound effects and stuff, and I think does he do the music as well? I think, or
I think so.
I think he does the music himself, and he just does all this stuff, and using he just learns how to do all these things himself, and it makes it look so easy, and the end product looks so good as well, doesn't it? Just getting little lights, little Sakani lights, and just put them around. And
there's a part in Annabelle Creation. I don't know if it's the opening credits scroll or it might be the final sort of credits.
Yeah,
where there's you've basically got the cameras panning around this wall that's got all religious text on it.
Yeah,
because that's this room where the Annabelle doll has been stored in the story, and you initially see it in the film, and it's all very flashy and whatnot, and you think our team must have worked on that. But then he's just he shows you the software that he uses and says, well, this is how I did it, and I take these pictures, and then I basically just say I want the camera to go from here to here at this speed, and it just makes it all seem quite doable.
It was Blender, wasn't it? I think which is a free bit of software you can download. And I think they ran out of time on the film, so he just said, I'll do this myself at home. So I think he uses little Blackmagic, the original little pocket HD camera, which you can buy now for a couple of £100 off eBay. So he used that little camera and just film this little bits himself, and then cut it all together in Blender, and it ended up in the film. And the same with Lights Out. I think there's some sort of flashback scenes or some old Super 8 footage which he shot himself with his little camera, and that ended up in the film as well, just because he wanted to just do little bits that kind of himself. And
I mean, if anyone listening who has any interest in getting into filmmaking, search out on YouTube Pony Smasher. It's an odd sounding username, but his videos are really, really informative, and as we said, it seems very down to earth.
Yeah, he comes across as a really, really nice guy. Just like I said, just someone who just does it because he loves doing it, and there's no sense of ego with him at all, is it? It's just he loves making films, and he loves sharing the experience of making films, and wants to inspire people to make films.
It's excellent stuff. So I'm very interested in this next thing. I know the last film he did, non-horror related, was the superhero film Shazam, and I mean, I don't know anything about the character. I do like some superhero films to a degree, but it was an entertaining film, so it shows that he's not not stuck in horror, because obviously horror is great. That's why we're here. We love the genre. But he can, as a filmmaker, he's the sky's the limit, really, I think. So I'm very interested to watch this next one. Final bit of news: Ghostbusters. Sony are ready to blast with more ghosts with a fifth movie. Are you a Ghostbusters fan, Peter?
My son loves it.
Has your son seen the new one?
Yes. My 3-year-old son. And my 5-year-old daughter. We got Afterlife.
Yes.
and they love it.
Now, did you? There's one particular bit because I saw it with a colleague of ours on one of the films, my good friend Dean Jovey.
Right.
Saw it at the cinema. There was one particular scene that I remember thinking, God, if I'd seen this bit as a kid, I might have been a bit freaked out. And that's when I can't remember any characters' names, but the god from the first film, returns and just tears that guy in half.
I may say to the kids, I think when the scary bits come up, we say, "Look away," and they look away.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. It's like in the original first film, was that ghost in the library, isn't there? And
yes,
it's scary and
yeah.
But,
I mean,
yeah, they will kind of watch bits of it. Yeah.
That was the only bit that I kind of thought, like, I mean, that's cool, but if so maybe a little bit. It's only a brief section, but maybe a little bit too much for a young audience. Just a couple of comments more in the chat. So Fran the Can says that Black Phone looks promising and Ethan Hawke is suitably creepy in it. Bruce Todd, talking about the filmmaking, said probably won't be making any films, but it does sound pretty interesting anyway.
Yeah.
So definitely, yeah. Any interest, check it out. And like I say, is a talented filmmaker as well.
I think with Annabelle Creation, there's about 7 parts videos. He's done like sort of 20 minutes each. And there's like 7 parts or something, just showing the whole behind the scenes process of making it.
Oh wow!
So that's really interesting. If you've got time, just sit there and just watch a few of those. It's really interesting to watch how he directs the film, makes the film.
Yeah, how he puts it all together. Really interesting. Berkeley says about the Ghostbuster scene that was crazy. And the Gruff says devil dog hands coming out the chair in the original Ghostbusters scared me as a kid.
It's in Afterlife as well, isn't it? The same bit of
at the start when
he runs back to the farmhouse, and at that point I say to the kids, "Look away!" When they and there's that bit where the trap opens up and the big demon dog runs out. And I mean, they sort of glance at. I mean, they've not been too disturbed yet. No. He loves it. My son loves it. I had to buy him all the Playmobil stuff for his birthday this year. So he's got the firehouse station thing and the car he got for Christmas and the Marshmallow Man and all the characters. He loves it.
My youngest niece, she's a big Ghostbusters fan, so she's got like the overalls, like the old school style overalls, and for her birthday, my brother-in-law, when she was there with the proton pack, he had an inflatable Mr. Stave Puff outfit. So he then came to the living room, and without even blinking or anything, she just gets the proton pack out and starts shooting at him. Brilliant. But it's crazy considering it's a franchise from our youth.
84, I think. 85, like that, I think.
Yeah. Still going strong. They are looking to do a 5th Ghostbusters film. Sony Pictures are. The announcement was made in the closing sizzle reel, where they also confirmed that a 3rd Venom is in the works. Last year's Jason Reitman directed Ghostbusters Afterlife was the long-awaited canonized 3rd film in the franchise that fans have been clamoring for since the release of Ghostbusters 2 in 1989. There's just some news really centered around what happens in Afterlife in this article, but they've confirmed that they're going to be doing a 5th Ghostbusters film. I
will look forward to that. I will be watching that with the kids. They will love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I grew up with the second one. I saw the first one much later, but the second one always was on TV.
I think I'm the same as well. I remember the bit where they go down in the sewer and there's that ghost train comes past, and obviously the end with the Statue of Liberty and that. Yeah.
That was a classic one.
It's great, yeah. But the first one's so much better, I think.
Yeah. Because there's the second one, like I say, it's the first one I watched that holds a dear place, but the first one is a better overall film.
Yeah.
Fran the Can says Vigo possessing Ray in the second film got me when I saw it in the cinema. I will say that I do think Vigo, the Carpathian or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He's a really cool villain, actually. Quite freaky as a kid.
Yeah.
So that is it really for the news headlines. We've got a few reviews before we get on to the Evil Dead, but the video nasties. So we've got 3 films we're going to look at. Let's transition to a new screen. Oh, look at that, seamless. The first one, Studio 666, the Foo Fighters film. Now,
all right, okay.
I and ahed about watching this for a while because I'm a rock and metal guy.
Yeah.
I've never really liked the Foo Fighters other than a couple of their early sort of songs.
Okay.
Just not really my sort of my genre. And
A bit samey.
yeah, a little bit middle of the road.
Yeah.
But then again, I was never a huge Nirvana fan. I mean, Nirvana were a little bit before my time when I got into music. Like Kurt Cobain killed himself while I was still very young. But Nevermind was a big album, but it was never, I wasn't a huge Nirvana fan, so I never really transitioned much into Foo Fighters. So
Yeah.
I ummed and ahed about watching this for a while, but I tell you what, I am glad I watched it.
Is it good?
Do you know what? Like,
Yeah.
the opening 5 minutes, it's got Jenna Ortega, who's quite a young actress that's starting to make a bit of a name for herself in horror. I think she might have started in Disney or something, but she's been in Scream, the new Scream recently.
All right. I'll watch it every day. So.
Yeah, what do you think of the new Scream?
I liked it. It's good.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, it is. Yeah, it's very well done. It's very, obviously it's very much like the first film. The way it opens up in the same way, the phone calls and stuff. But then again, what else were they going to do with it? That's what it is.
I respect the Scream franchise for having the same kind of core actors in it from the first to the fifth, because a lot of horror franchises by that point, people don't often last 2 films at least.
Yeah.
My only thing, not even a complaint, but thing that I kind of noticed with it was you didn't even really need Nev Campbell's character Sydney in it.
No, but it was nice to get her back.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
it was nice to get them all back and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like the character and everything, but in terms of like the plot, it was kind of like, well, I've come back to save the day. But it generally was a fun film. Some really quite gory kills.
Yeah, David Arquette suffered.
Yes.
Yeah.
Technically, as he did in like the first 2, didn't he? I can't remember the third. I've wiped my memory of that.
Third, yeah, and the fourth one as well.
The fourth, I think is okay, but I just think it's quite forgettable.
Yeah,
I've watched it twice now, and I can't really remember what happens either time.
Yeah, Craven's last film.
It was Craven's last film. Yeah. But Studio 666, you got Jenna Ortega in it at the start, the very opening, and has an incredibly bloody death, and the deaths get bloodier. Now, the Foo Fighters, they're musicians, so they're obviously not actors. I mean, Dave Grohl's done a couple of little comedy roles. And I did think to begin with, is the acting in this going to be a bit shoddy? But they're all quite charismatic, and they all are quite fun. I mean, the opening music was scored by John Carpenter, who has a small role in the film.
All right.
Metal fans will notice Kerry King from Slayer is in the film early on. There's loads of cool little nods to the music genre. There's a bit when they all have a bit of a disagreement, but they all come back together. And Dave Grohl just goes, "Come on, guys, Pearl Jam high five," and they do the album cover to 10 in a high five. And he goes, "We're still alive. Come on." But then you've got another character, delivery man, turns up at this house they're staying at to record this new album, and it mirrors the Exorcist, the priest, the vicar turning up, not vicar, the priest.
Street lamp.
Yeah. So there's a lot of homages to horrors from yesteryear. Like I say, it's surprisingly gory. I won't go into the details of it, but there is a chainsaw, a double death by chainsaw scene, which you have to see to believe. So I would highly actually recommend this. I was very much on the fence, but I mean, for me, I'm gonna give this a 7.5. 7.5 out of 10. Pete, have you heard much about Studio 666?
I've heard of it.
Have you any interest in watching it?
I will. If it comes up and I can watch it, I'll watch it. If it's on Amazon or something like that, I didn't know too much about it. I've just heard of it, and I've heard they've done this feature-length film. Yeah, it's not like a short or anything.
Yeah, it's a feature-length film. The general gist is that they're coming up to their 10th album, and they are looking for inspiration. There's a funny scene quite early on when Dave Grohl's saying, "Look, guys, got a couple of riff ideas," and they turn out to be, I think, My Hero and Everlong, and both the guys are like, "Yeah, that's a really cool song 20 years ago when you wrote it." So they speak to their management who say, look, there's a house that's going to be perfect for you guys to record your new album. But there seems to be some supernatural elements there which start influencing Dave Grohl's character, of Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl playing Dave Grohl. And things get a bit bloody. There's things take a satanic route.
Oh, I will check it out. And obviously, with Taylor Hawkins passing as well, is a bit.
Yeah, very sad news. I mean, he was only, 50, 51. It's... Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of a somber thing seeing him and Nick. He plays quite a pivotal role, as they all do. They all have their moments. I didn't even realise the Foo Fighters had a keyboard player, but this guy at the bottom left of the picture, Jeffy Rami.
Okay, well, I didn't know they had a keyboard player either.
Yeah, they got a keyboard player. He was actually especially quite funny in it. So yeah, and Pat
Smear.
Pat Smear, he's of Nirvana at one point. He was their touring guitarist at the end. He is hilarious in this. He basically plays like a bit of a doddering old man at times, but
right, okay.
He is definitely very entertaining.
I will definitely check it out when I get the chance to see it.
Bruce Todd in the chat says, wanted to see it in the cinema, but I'm in small town Scotland. No cinema near me had it. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see, as I've mentioned on the show a number of times, X, but that was in the cinema and then out the cinema, and I know it's gone to VOD, but that only seems to be America, because there doesn't seem to be any. I haven't heard anything about when its UK home release comes, but I'm sure
it won't be long, won't it? They try and get them onto VOD and Blu-ray as quickly as possible from the cinemas these days, don't they?
Yeah, so that's definitely one that will be getting a review as soon as I'm able to watch it. But yeah, I would say if you like horror comedy, and the Foo Fighters, they are generally quite charming, I suppose I could say, and they're all quite likable. Yeah, give it a watch. Next up now, from the poster artwork, I did not think that this was a horror. This appeared on Sky. I watched it at the weekend, but it was in the horror section, so I thought I'll give it a go. It's Paul Dude's Deadly Lunch Break.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
If you're looking on the live stream, you're probably seeing quite a few comedy faces. We've got Johnny Vegas.
Yeah.
We've got Chris Marshall.
Yeah.
I've got the cast here.
Right.
I think Catherine Parkinson, who you may recognise from the It Crowd.
Okay.
She is also there, and the eponymous Paul Dude is played by Tom Meaton. Now, this was it's a fun film, but it's about a particular area of entertainment that I really have a strong dislike for, and that is these big televised talent shows.
Right.
Like America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah.
So the general premise of the film is Paul Dude is a bit of a weedy guy. He works in a charity shop. He's in his 40s. He has this dance routine that he's prepared to a song that always seems to get featured in films, but I don't know why, because I don't think it's very good, and that's Electric Dreams.
Right.
Yeah. So that plays a big part in the film.
Yeah. Right.
And he does this. It's a crap dance routine, okay? But he does it for his mum. His mum's disabled, and he's very much gearing up to do this talent show. Can't remember what the talent show's called, but it's all based around like a Snapchat type app, like, very social media influenced. They've got this really eccentric US host who's played by a British comedy actor called Kevin Bishop, who is actually quite funny, but he just doesn't seem to be in that much these days.
Yeah.
Called Jack Tapp. And Paul Dude finds out the auditions for this show are today. So he goes there to go to the show on his lunch break, but he's got a co-worker that kind of bullies him, that slows him down from getting to his mum and getting his sequined clothing for his routine. He has to go to collect his mum. They can't get on the train because the train assistant, who is played by the star of Sightseers. What's the guy's name?
I can't remember. I've got it somewhere.
Steve Oram. Sightseers is a brilliant Neil Marshall film, I think.
Ben Wheatley.
Ben Wheatley. Sorry, thank you very much. Yeah, Ben Wheatley. He plays this train operator who's just a complete dick to the character. They eventually miss the train, so they go to get a taxi, and then Chris Marshall, along with Alice Lowe, who's from Prevenge, which is a pregnancy horror comedy.
Is she in Sightseers as well?
She is in Sightseers, yes,
Yeah.
and she's also from one of my favourite shows, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Oh yeah.
Her and Chris Marshall are a priest and I wouldn't say a nun, but a woman involved with the church, and they basically just take the taxi from him. He hollers a taxi, and they just go, "No, we need this. Please step away." So he eventually he's late for these auditions. Puts on a bit of a spectacle. He gets ridiculed, and unfortunately, his mum, because she hasn't got her medication, passes away. So he goes on a bit of a revenge kick, and that's where things get a bit bloody. Fran the Cannon, yes, that is Johnny Vegas in the bottom left. Johnny Vegas playing a character who's running a traditional Japanese masseuse type place with a lot of samurai swords on the walls. It's a madcap film. It is quite fun. There's a steamroller death where someone's eyes explode out their head before their head explodes.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not a brilliant film, and there's a part near the end, without giving too much spoilery bits away, where he does his routine again, and everyone's like, "Yeah, cheering, loving it," and I'm just like, this just reminds me of, like we say, those talent shows where you've got someone doing something basic, which to me doesn't require any talent, but because they're either old or whatever, it's like, yeah, that's amazing. And I'm like, it's not though, is it? It's just someone in their 80s doing a really slow rap, like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air rap. So yeah, it's because it's centered around that kind of area of the show business. 5.5. It's all right if it's on. Don't go out your way to watch it, I wouldn't say.
I wouldn't, trust me.
No.
Looking at that poster.
Yeah, it doesn't fill you with.
Yeah, I would avoid that quite a lot, yeah.
And finally on the reviews, Netflix have done a new Conversations with a Killer series by what's the guy's name? Joe Berlinger, who did the Paradise Lost documentaries, and I believe he also did the Conversations with a Killer on Ted Bundy.
Right.
There's a new one, the John Wayne Gacy tapes.
Right.
Oh, it's a harrowing watch. It basically it's a 3-part series. It's detailing how John Wayne Gacy was caught, the arguments during his hearing, and then ultimately when he was put to death by, I think it was lethal injection. They don't actually confirm, but you're hearing these tapes of his conversations while he's incarcerated, and wow, it's pretty hard to listen to stuff at times. The focus of the series initially is the police's search for a missing teen called Robert Peast, who, like a number, I mean, this guy killed at least 33 young men and teenagers, and they're looking into his disappearance and how John Wayne Gacy ultimately started getting followed by the police, and what they then found when they eventually got to look in his property in the crawl space. And the interesting thing with the show is that the focus isn't entirely on John Wayne Gacy, but it also gives a good focus on the victims and how, this happened in 1974 or 78 that he was arrested. 78. And there's still 6 victims that haven't been identified.
Right.
I guess because, if people go missing, especially in America in the 70s to 90s, probably still now, but probably more so than before,
No DNA,
DNA
profiling and stuff.
If the family don't report them as missing, then how would they ever know? Because people would run away from home. A lot of these men were homosexual, and so the parents, the family unit may not have been a supportive family unit, so there may have been, just that kind of break in the family line. But it's a really interesting watch. They have discussions with a survivor of his, with a guy who he twice tried to sexually assault before detailing how he could basically kill him if he wanted to. And you also hear him talking about how they're trying to find the body of Robert Peast. And they're saying, look, He doesn't seem to be under the house. And John Wayne Gacy's just there like, well, yeah, maybe there's a road that leads to nowhere, it just ends, and there's a lake. You know, maybe it's in the water. I'd leave him there if I was you. I'd just leave him to the water. And it's like, he talks about people like they're not people. He talks about them like they're produce or stock.
Yeah.
He says in one moment that, you know, if you go to the shops and you buy something, then you own that. And if you don't like it, then you can trash it. You do what you want because you own it. And it's the same as if you buy someone's time. You own them. So it's like, what? I'm not going to give it a score because it's more of it's a documentary. It's not like a film for like, you know, entertainment purposes. But I mean, if you've got any interest or intrigue in true crime, in the fascination with serial killers, then the Conversations with a Killer, John Wayne Gacy tapes is interesting. It doesn't glorify or glamorize, you know, who he was or what he did. You know, it puts a good focus on the police efforts to try and identify these victims and try and give families out there closure. I mean, they managed to identify in the last 9 years alone. I think they managed to identify 2 more people, but there's still 6 that are basically in unmarked graves because no one knows who they were. Berkeley says the
Fun for all the family.
Oh, sorry.
Fun for all the family.
It's a family.
I'll sit down with the kids to watch it later.
Kids, you know you like Ghostbusters. Do you like clowns?
This is the next step up for you now.
Berkeley says the 1992 miniseries To Catch a Killer about Gacy was excellent. Yes, that was Brian Dennehy playing Gacy. Excellent actor. I think he's died in the last few years, but yeah. Definitely one worth watching. I think I caught it on TV a few years ago on one of the Sky channels. But yeah, it's an excellent. There's not really been many good John Wayne Gacy related films. But saying that, I mean, a lot of the times when they do a true serial killer based film, it's not normally good.
No.
But yeah, To Catch a Killer, I'll agree. 1992 miniseries was definitely a good watch. Now.
Cool. Right.
Now, Peter.
Now.
We are on to the main event. Do you know what? I put together a little bit of a transition moment here because we're going on to our main discussion. And it was only today that I suddenly thought while I was in work, do you know what? This is like generally a film-based thing. Why don't I have that win out your featured presentation?
Okay.
I haven't prepared that though, so that's a bit of a pointless thing to point out.
Brilliant.
But here we've got some transitionary music.
Okay.
Which Peter can't hear, but it's going to pop his head.
I can't hear, so I'll react to, okay?
Because we're now getting on to the main event of tonight's discussion, which is Video Nasties.
You playing the music?
It's still playing the music. Dance away, Peter. For people on the podcast streams, Peter Goddard is currently dancing. And
to music I can't hear.
There we go. The music is finished. Right, Peter.
Right.
So I wanted to do a little series of shows centered around remakes of specific things.
Okay.
No, I initially thought, Video Nasty, that's ripe for remakes. There's not actually that many, are there?
Well, I mean, the original Video Nasties, they're more interesting to read about the history. I really like Video Nasties. I really like the whole kind of history of censorship and the whole history of like video when it first came out, and you know the Department of Prosecution's list that was put together, Mary Whitehouse, and the whole kind of like media thing that happened. But the films themselves, although I like collecting them and I like having these original tapes, the films themselves, probably about 99% of them are just rubbish. Honestly, I mean, there's probably about 5 out of the original list that you'd actually sit down and watch.
So, Peter, for anyone watching or listening who...
Look at this one, look. It's called The Werewolf and the Yeti, look. Would you remake that? Would you remake that?
Look, let's give Jason Blum from Blumhouse a call and say, you've done, Halloween, sequels, all that. We need to see a new Yeti and the Werewolf.
Exactly.
So for people who may not be familiar watching the stream or listening on podcast to what Video Nasties mean or what they are, give us a brief overview of what the Video Nasty craze was.
A brief history in about 5 minutes. So basically, back in about late 1970s, 79-ish, video came onto the market. So with like the JVC, I think we made the first kind of VHS. There was like a bit of a wars between Betamax and VHS, and VHS initially, in the end, won out. So when it first came onto the market, and people started to rent or buy VHS players, the big studios in the country, the big studios in the world like MGM and Universal and stuff, didn't want to put their films out onto video because they were unsure about it. Because when they had their films in the cinema and stuff, then obviously they could like control when people watched them. They control how many people like will go and watch them, and how many times you have to pay each time you want to watch the film. But having it on video, kind of like they didn't like the idea of people being able to own it and watch it as many times as they want. So they didn't really get into it. So there was this kind of like initial public demand for video, but not much product. So that a lot of these kind of like small independent kind of like little businesses run from like the back of people's homes, like Vipco, Astra, Replay, Go Video. They all started up, and they would get kind of like weird films, like horror films and stuff from around the world, which they could get the rights to for cheap. And in order to try and sell them, they would have like really lurid artwork and really like sensationalist packaging and stuff. Like the Gorilla Killer was like one of the main ones that first kind of sparked off of this. That on the cover, they Mike Lee from this is a Vipco one. So Mike Lee ran like an advert in the I think Film and TV Monthly magazine or something, and that got a load of complaints and stuff. Because when video first came out, it was classed as a publishing medium like books. So whereas when you had a film at the cinema, it had to be BBFC rated. But when it came out into video, it was classed as like books or music, where you didn't have to have any kind of rating done on it. So all these companies, all these companies and video stores and stuff were just putting out any old gory, extreme, kind of like cannibal films, Nazi films, slasher films, rape revenge films. And initially there was nothing that the kind of like the police and stuff could do about it, until they unearthed this old act called the Obscene Publications Act. And in there was Section 2, which they looked at. There's a campaigner called Mary. There's a lot of history behind it. But there's a campaigner called Mary Whitehouse who was this kind of like Christian. He wanted to kind of push her moral values onto the whole of the country.
Yeah, Fran the Cannon says Mary Whitehouse, the original Karen.
Yes. I mean, she did one good thing in her entire career. She used to complain about like song lyrics. So she complained about there's recently a documentary on BBC Two a couple of weeks ago. She used to complain about like song lyrics and things like that, like in the Beatles songs, and like write to the BBC, you can't have this one line about this, or she was really extreme. But she did one good thing, which was back in 1979 she pushed through the child protection laws, or the Child Protection Act, which up until that point it wasn't illegal to own and distribute child pornography. Seriously,
Jesus.
right? And and the reason why we have these child protection laws was because she pushed through that one act. So a lot. She's kind of become this laughing stock, and she was kind of absurd and stuff with videos and things. But until I found out about that about her the other day, I kind of have a little bit of respect for her.
Oh,
but anyway, yeah. So just for that one thing.
Enough.
But anyway, so she started this moral campaign, and she went to the Department of Public Prosecutions, who they use this Obscene Publications Act to try and target certain films. And they were going and they'll start raiding video stores and looking through all the tapes and stuff. They kind of compiled a list, and this list kind of changed here and there, but it kind of settled on 72 titles which they felt were liable for prosecution under the Obscene Publications Act. And then these 72 titles around various courts around the country went to court, and out of those 39 were found obscene and it became a criminal offence to own those.
Yeah.
And then about 1984, finally, they brought out the Video Recordings Act, which then kind of put an end to any sort of pre-certificate tapes without BBFC certificates. But it's a very interesting time. There's lots of really good books on it. There's one called See No Evil, which is a really good book by David Correx and David Slater. There's loads. There's a couple that Dark Side magazine have put out. There's one called Art of the Nasty, which is a Fab Press book.
I mean, Scream magazine, which is a quarterly release, they quite often have sections on video nasties. I think even the most recent most recent issue might have had. The
Nasty Files, where they look at like a film each month, sort of thing. Yeah.
Just quickly, Matt Wyatt from the chat said, "I laughed out loud when the Yeti and the Werewolf was brought out. Then love it. Got a DVD unit here of Sasquatch Nasties." He'll catch up with the rest of the show on the podcast tomorrow. Thanks, Matt. Sasquatch Nasties, my goodness.
I got a friend who actually collects a load of Bigfoot pre-shot videotapes.
So I don't think I've ever seen a Bigfoot based horror.
Oh, there's loads. There's loads out there.
So we're going to be discussing a selection of films from the very good to the potentially very bad, to then very good again. That's kind of give you an idea of the journey we're going to go on. Now, one very famous video nasty, and we're discussing the remakes as mentioned, but the remake to this it's kind of a remake, but it's also a sequel. It's part of the same continuation, the same canon, and that is The Evil Dead.
The Evil Dead.
This was what,
my original
1981? Was it Sam Raimi?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, this one was on the original, the original 72, which were taken to court, and this one was actually found not guilty on several accounts.
Oh, excellent!
And so it was eventually dropped by the DPP, but it was on the original list.
Talking about Sasquatches, Berkeley says Harry and the Hendersons was pretty bad, and Fran the Cannon said, would they be hairy scaries?
Hairy scaries. There we go.
There we go.
A special subgenre.
And Bruce Todd says also a good time to hype Censor. Love that film. Yeah, we. I think it was actually the episode 2 with you on, Peter, that I discussed Censor.
Yeah,
thoroughly enjoyed it.
The remake.
Yeah. So let's talk first about the original Sam Raimi. Oh, look at that.
Original remake. Yes, it's brilliant. I mean, he was about 20 or something, 21 or something. How old was he when he made it?
It's
with his friends.
So inventive. Such an inventive film with such a small budget.
Raised the money through doctors and dentists in his local area. Made the short film called Within the Woods first of all, which he shot for like no money on Super 8, and then he used that to kind of raise money through doctors and dentists, and went out with his friends to this cabin in the woods and made this film over a couple of summers or something.
Yeah, he'd have been 22.
20 was he 22 when he did it?
Yeah,
and it's like just the opening camera shot where it glides over the water. He invented his own steady cam, glide cam thing called. We call it the plank cam or something. It's like a plank of wood he put the camera on, and they sort of like ran over this like water to have the kind of demon's point of view. There's like a moment as well towards the end of the film where the camera's looking down. Bruce Campbell is walking through the cabin, and it goes past some beams. And as it goes past the beams on the soundtrack, it goes wob wob wob, like it's kind of making the sound of the camera going past the beams. Looking, it's like everything, like the sound design, lighting, everything about that film. It's brilliant, and for such a young.
When I first saw it, many years ago, when it was getting a hyped re-release on DVD, I think it might have been an Anchor Bay release, because Anchor Bay were like the Arrow of the early 2000s in terms of. Yeah, I think it might have been that I had.
Like a big, there's all three of them in their Army of Darkness as well.
I remember seeing the ending where you've got the last Deadite sort of transforming, mutating with all the arms coming out of it. And the stop motion.
Stop frame, yeah, mate, yeah.
And at the time, watching it quite young, early teens, I didn't really appreciate that. I thought, oh god, the effects are a bit shitty at the end.
Yeah.
But I actually watched the original Evil Dead again last night because I had it downloaded on my Skybox, and you just have such an appreciation for
Yeah,
what they're able to achieve. I mean, incredibly talented crew along with Sam Raimi, a great cast. I mean, Bruce Campbell, really, really hamming it up, but in a good way.
yeah.
As the
He,
lead
he,
Ash.
he was a big fan of the Three Stooges, so that kind of crazy camera angles and just over the topness and just yeah, but yeah, it's brilliant. It's like I said, like for someone that age and back in 1980, 70 when he made it,
Yeah, 1981.
81 when he made it. I mean, the technology back then to like shooting on film and cutting manually and stuff, and to do effects and things like now is quite. Even now, using like modern technology, it'd be hard to be get something that looks as good as that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's also genuinely quite creepy in some of the scenes, like the bit on screen now, where she's like basically taunting Ash, and they've all got the white eyes, and I remember being freaked out as a kid by it, but the pencil stabbing in the ankle,
yeah,
it's just mushing it around. Yeah, it's excellent. So I mean, so this one managed to get past uncut. It didn't get. It was on the original list, right?
They put it out uncut, and then it got. I mean, after when the Video Recordings Act came in, and these companies had to resubmit films which any film that had been on the list, even if it's found not guilty, the BBFC still had to cut something from it because technically it had been classified as an obscene thing under the Obscene Publications Act. So even though it kind of got acquitted in numerous courts at the time, I think they still had to cut a few seconds here. I think that leg scene with the pencil was cut in the subsequent sort of 1990s when I think Forefront or something were the first to bring it out onto VHS. Yeah, so it still had a few seconds cut here and there. When Palace put it out back in the 80s, it was uncut, but
it's a timeless film that went on to spawn. Well, so it's had two initial sequels, as you mentioned, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Daylight, and Army of Darkness. It's then had a bit later on than the remake reboot had a TV series as well, which I've seen some of. I've not seen all of, but Ash versus the Evil Dead.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it, unfortunately, but
it's on. All three series are on Netflix.
I haven't got Netflix.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. I would say I'll share my password, but apparently Netflix is clamping down on that. So, oh dear.
No, give me a password. How will they know?
How will they know? Okay, maybe we'll see.
I'll take your password. You can have my Amazon password. Actually, no, that'll be connected to my.
I'll just order everything.
Online account, won't it?
Peter, what are all these expenses you?
Yeah. I'll give you my Amazon login. You'll be able to just use my card to buy stuff.
And I would.
I know you would.
Well, as we're going to go to talk about the remake now, Fran the Cannon says in the chat, I really like the original, but the recent film is so good as well. It's much grimier and nastier in tone than the original, and Jane Levy is good in this and Don't Breathe. Let's talk about the remake, the reboot, the fourth film, if you will.
Yeah.
How did you feel about this? Because this is going to be quite an interesting topic where we're looking at these classic, some classic. We're starting off with a classic. These classic films that have then many years later been remade, reinterpreted. How do you think this one did? The Fede Alvarez 2013, I think it was. Yeah, 2013.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's all right.
No, I mean, I didn't love it. I've only watched it the once. I mean, I remember the end. There's the bit at the end where there's just loads of blood coming out everywhere, and it kind of goes a bit over the top. It kind of starts out kind of more serious. There's more serious kind of tone to it than Sam Raimi's original. I didn't love it. I didn't really hate it. It was okay. To be honest with you.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought that they they did something quite interesting where you had a character that you initially is kind of made to look like a bit like the new Ash. There's this
Oh yeah,
leading guy wearing the blue, similar to Ash in the
yeah,
original. And very quickly, we've then got our real protagonist is also the antagonist for like the first half or so of the film.
yeah. She's a recovering drug addict or something. So they're going to the cabin to get her over the drugs
Yeah,
she's on, and
she gets possessed.
yeah,
There's some great moments like when she slices her tongue down the middle. There's
yeah,
also a particular one of the other girls has been possessed, and I think she might have cut her arm off with a with like a turkey cutter, like an electric knife.
yeah, as you do.
She is then attacking another character with a nail gun, and there's just some really quite good creepy scenes in that.
Yeah,
I think in terms of especially the films that we'll be discussing, this is definitely, in my opinion, one of the better
yeah. Oh,
remakes.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think I need to watch it again. I watched it a couple of years ago, and I think I don't know. There's a few moments where because it starts out in kind of more serious tone, and then it kind of does these kind of over the top sort of violence bits later on. And when they sort of kicked in, it kind of felt a bit jarring with the initial. We thought it was going to be like a serious kind of remake, and then it kind of goes a bit, and then like all the blood and stuff, and it kind of goes all overboard, and kind of goes kind of into that Sam Raimi kind of Three Stooges kind of like comedy horror type thing.
okay,
Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Like the cutting the tongue in half bit and stuff. That was all kind of a bit over top. But I
Oh,
think
okay.
I don't know. I think that kind of tonal shift sort of made me kind of go a bit when I first saw it. But now, if I watch it again, now I know.
You know what to expect.
Yeah, I think I might appreciate it more.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's worth a repeat view, and your opinion may change.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I think I will sit down and watch it again at some point.
Now, the next film that we're going to discuss in the Video Nasty era, I'll be honest, like a couple of these, I haven't seen the original, but it's kind of got a spiritual remake. I think we discussed yesterday.
Oh, is this
This is
go on then?
yes,
Cannibal Holocaust.
Cannibal Holocaust and the almost spiritual remake Eli Roth's Green Inferno.
Have I got these? Cannibal Holocaust. Oh no!
No,
Do you know,
no,
I think
Nick Carter's got your Cannibal Holocaust.
Who has Nicholas?
Yeah,
Yeah, he hasn't he? Yeah, you remember that?
yeah, because he said he did say, I think it was actually on the stream last week. He said,
Yeah.
"Oh, I've still got that film of his," and I went, "What, Cannibal Holocaust?" He went, yes, it's safe and sound. I have still got it. Don't worry.
It's been about 4 years.
It's been a
Might as well it's safe and sound. Brilliant.
well, good. You're not
Watch it. Yeah.
When we eventually do another film, we'll no doubt hire Nick and we'll say as a prerequisite, bring back my bloody DVD.
Yeah. I mean, so the Cannibal Holocaust is like one of the main video nasties. It was the one which the guy from Go Video put a big advert out. Actually, no, he wrote. The guy from Go Video wrote a letter to Mary Whitehouse, pretending to be an angry member of the public who had seen the video in the shops in order to try and drum up publicity for his film. So he was pretending to be an angry person who'd seen it in the shops and said, "Oh, look at this film! It's really shouldn't be on the shelves." And then that spurred her on to then start bringing the prosecutions through the courts and stuff. So then he ended up getting the film banned, and it kind of backfired a bit on the guy from Go Video, because then it then became like a criminal offense to own this film and stuff. But it's kind of like a lot of people see it as like an influence on the found footage genre. So you've never seen this film?
I've never seen Cannibal Holocaust. No.
Go and watch it. I mean, there's a few animal killings in it, like real life animal killings, which kind of taint it a bit for me. But the initial premise and the way it's done is very clever.
It was wasn't it basically like found footage before there was found footage?
So yeah, basically, so the film is about this guy goes out to recover some footage. Some documentary filmmakers have gone out into the woods, into this Amazonian jungle, to make a video about the cannibalism. They're trying to disprove that cannibalism doesn't exist or something, or that might be cannibal folks. Anyway, So and then they disappear. So this recovery guy company goes out and he gets the film cameras back, and they're watching through them all, and they realize that this documentary crew, when they're out there, they kind of like antagonizing the cannibals, and they kind of like stage stuff for the camera, and they set a fire to the village and stuff to try and get reactions and try and like get more sensational footage, and then that leads to obviously them being killed and eaten. But it's very well done, and in it, and this documentary crew, at the beginning you see one of their previous works, and one of their previous works was called The Green Inferno. They showed a section of this film from before they go out to make this cannibal film, and it's called The Green Inferno, and that's where Eli Roth got the title for his film.
Now, Berkeley's he's noticed on one of the poster arts for the original film, available at all good video retailers. Really makes things seem more underground. There's a part actually, and the image will probably come up again shortly because it's only a small reel, but it mentions another format that I've not heard of. It said, well, it says available. Oh, it'll come up in a second. It says available on Betamax, VHS, and I think it said VCC.
There's one called V2000.
The V2000. But so what's that? Just another sort of competing brand?
Another very low. Didn't do very well. It's like a VHS.
Oh yeah,
it's like a audio tape type thing.
It says VOC or VCC.
It'd be V2000 if you can see. It'd be V2000.
Oh, okay.
That was the third format that lost out. It was kind of like another sort of weird tape type thing. It looks like a giant audio cassette tape.
Oh, okay.
Like as they sort of C90 type things.
Berkeley says, "Nah, it's dealers. It's dealers. The only thing I think of with that word is drugs."
Fair enough.
so in terms of it initially kind of started this video Nasties kind of kickoff. So was it a film that was banned for a long time, or did it just get released with heavy cuts? I mean, what sort of things did they butcher?
I think it's the full uncut version has it been fully uncut? I think there might be still about 30 seconds missing from I mean, a lot of it is to do with the animal cruelty, and there's like a rape scene and stuff. You need to watch it.
I'll definitely give it a watch. Maybe when you get your copy back from Nick.
I'm just going to buy another one.
I'll see if it's on Shudder, because I do know Shudder's got some classics.
I think Amazon Prime have had it on for a while.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll add it to the watch list.
And it's got lovely music. The music at the beginning by Ritz or
there it says at the bottom. Riz Ortolani.
Yeah, he really beautiful, completely at odds with the film. When you listen to the music, it's like, oh, it's beautiful, like touristy type film. They're in shots going over the Amazon. It's like, oh, it's lovely. And then they,
and then people start getting
kind of up a turtle, and it's
God. Well,
or shooting pigs and things.
Well, that brings us onto the pseudo sequel, Eli Roth's Green Inferno.
I'd say it's a reimagining. I think it's like he's inspired by that. And there's other films as well. There's one called Cannibal Ferox, which came out, and there's kind of like a weird sort of Italian cannibal subgenre which came out for a while. So he's kind of like mainly Cannibal Holocaust, but these are kind of other Italian films. He's sort of taken influence from and kind of playing homage to, a bit like how Cabin Fever is kind of like in tone a homage to the Evil Dead, but it's not really like the Evil Dead.
So well, let's talk about Green Inferno, and also I guess Eli Roth. So what is your opinion really on Eli Roth's work? Like, where do you fall in terms of fandom or appreciation? Or...
I've got Cabin Fever, Hostel 1 and 2 and 3, I think. Green Inferno. I've got the Knock Knock film as well. He did. I mean, because I'm really into grindhouse and underground like films, and particularly these films of the 80s and stuff, and he's obviously a big fan of those. I kind of really want to get into his stuff more. I just find like with the Green Inferno is a great example where you kind of like starts out and you think this is going to be really good, and then it just has like kind of like weird, kind of like not sort of silly bits there. He kind of like I wouldn't say he completely ruins the film, so there's kind of bits where it's just a bit silly and it's a little bit you know,
He's
and he kind of
he's a
pushed the
frustrating
rope a little
filmmaker
bit.
for me.
Yeah,
He did a really good series, and I think there's a second series, but it's not in the UK yet. With AMC called The History of Horror.
right.
It's on Prime, not Prime, Shudder, the first
Yeah,
series, and he has a lot of the filmmakers and actors, musicians, are fans of horror, talking about specific things, the vampires subgenre, ghosts, whatever. It's really good. But yeah, I find that he's got such a platform in
yeah.
horror.
You have such expectations as well, and like I said, he's such a fan. He's such a fan himself of these things that I'm a fan of. And you go, oh, that is brilliant. Someone he's got a studio to fund a cannibal film. He's got a studio to fund his Hostel films, and there's always just something kind of like lacking.
The only film of
You know?
his that I've seen where he kind of strikes the tone more efficiently than others in terms of that line between dumb teens and terror is the first Hostel,
Yeah,
because I find that it's quite an effective film if you go into it and the first half an hour or so thinking, God, these are dumb teens. It's a little bit problematic, so I'm
yeah,
sure that they're a bit, I don't want to use the term rapey, but I'm sure that there's some discussion which is probably not really kosher in the modern age. But you've got these seeming like a bit of a teen film. They're going abroad. They're just trying to get laid. But then you've got little hints of something amiss before it all kind of goes.
yeah.
It all goes Pete Tong. But yeah,
I think maybe he's just, I don't know. I can't really criticize, but like as a director, he's just kind of maybe lacks the ability to direct that well. Like he's got really good ideas and really good visuals, but in terms of like kind of pacing or structure or characterization, that it always seems to kind of feel a bit disjointed. And then he has like kind of like this, like in the Green Inferno, isn't there a bit where someone's masturbating in the hut, and it's kind of like, why is that in there? You kind of ruined it now a bit. You can ruin the film a bit by having that in.
Fran McCann says, I enjoyed his early films, but Aftershock wasn't good. Yeah,
Aftershock, saying that.
Aftershock, yeah, well, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I would like to see? And this is going to sound a bit controversial, so just bear with me a moment.
Okay.
I'd like to see him do a film with Rob Zombie, but by doing that, I'd like Eli Roth to write it and Rob Zombie to direct it, because I think Rob Zombie, I think he is a good director, but I don't think he writes well. Like, he doesn't write characters well at all. He can't write like a protagonist.
Unless it's his wife.
Unless it's his wife, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's got, like, I mean, if you take away the dialogue and the characterizations, his films
Visually.
his films look great. Talking about the scene in Green Inferno, you've got when the crap starts hitting the fan, for want of a better term, there's a really grisly, violent dismemberment scene, which is really uncomfortable to watch, but it's indicative of that grindhouse,
Yeah.
grimy, gory horror. But then later on, you've got one character, one of these, the protagonists that's captured in a cage. One of them gets diarrhea, and then you got poop
Yeah.
sounds.
Yeah.
Another character's randomly jacking off in the corner.
Like in Cabin Fever, that little kid that started shouting pancakes. I mean, what's that all about?
Yeah, again, it's almost like he's a director that needs a script supervisor to go, really good,
Yeah.
Eli, really good. This bit, maybe we cut. These bits really good.
Like talking about Ty West. Ty West is a guy who loves that kind of like 80s, 70s, Chainsaw Massacre, Black Christmas, Halloween sort of like genres, and he does it really well. And Eli Roth has the potential of doing that, but he just needs to put aside the silly bits.
Yeah.
Like Hostel had such a good premise and such good potential and really good moments in it, but overall, or by the end, you're kind of like, oh, that's a bit convenient. Oh, that bit, okay. And then the girl, and she's got her eyeball hanging out, and it's like, okay, it looks silly sort of thing.
I generally enjoyed Hostel, but part two,
Yeah.
I remember actively disliking part two. I think because this time there didn't seem to be any protagonists that were at all likable, and that made me then kind of think of, basically like Saw 3 onwards, where you've basically just got characters being tortured gruesomely and dying gruesomely, but then there's no one really to. You haven't really got a focal point to get behind.
Yeah.
There's no kind of driving force other than, oh, here's another cool way to kill people, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Cannibal Holocaust, I'll definitely check out one of the original video Nasties. But in terms
Yeah.
of, if we're going to be looking at original versus remake, or kind of spiritual remake, Green Inferno overall, what did you think of it? How does it sit in line with Cannibal Holocaust?
It's more polished.
It does. Yeah,
Shot of nicer cameras.
Eli Roth does again, kind of, he does shoot well. His
Yeah.
He does have a great look to his films.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. I respect the fact that, like I said, I respect the fact that he's made a modern day cannibal film in the style of Cannibal Holocaust. But
Yeah,
I mean, Cannibal Holocaust is, the king of the cannibal films.
I guess it's his ambitions on one side are to be applauded, because he's not just it's kind of similar to, like we said, Ty West, and also like Ari Aster. They're directors that are doing the films they want to do. They've got their own particular kind of voices. It's just disappointing with Eli Roth that there's just moments that completely take you out of the film.
Yeah.
But I mean, I probably won't watch. I didn't dislike Green Inferno. I think it had some really good moments, and the death scenes were really quite gruesome, and really made you kind of fear this tribe. But then, you got someone jacking off in the corner of a cage. It's a bit silly.
Yeah.
So moving on.
Okay.
Now, I've never seen the original of this, but I've heard the remake, which was directed by Toby Hooper, is meant to be better than the original, and I thought
this one, aren't we?
I thought the remake was crap.
Okay.
Toolbox Murders.
Right.
So, how does the original fall in line with the Video Nasty era? What sort of notoriety, if any, did the original Toolbox Murders have?
It was one of the original 72, which was made the list, and then it didn't get any successful prosecution, so it was dropped from the list, but it was still obviously banned and stuff. It's all right. I mean, it's a very very depressing film, like in terms of the tone. I saw it many years ago. I remember there's a scene where a woman gets killed in the bath with a nail gun.
Yeah, I think it might be the one on screen now.
Is that the original?
That bit's from the original, yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay. It's a bit different to how I remember it. Yeah.
Oh, that might be the woman from the bath from the cover art, from the looks of it.
That is the woman. Yeah. So I remember that bit. It's very downbeat, the whole film. The whole tone's very like. Who's the actor in it? I think he's someone famous. He was in.
Let's have a look.
Talking about Video Nasty. I mean, this film here, Terrorized, which I always get confused with it. So you got this film here. Guess what the director made, but prior to this.
Oh God! No.
Have a guess.
No idea.
His name's Ken Hughes, and he directed Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And I'm pretty sure the guy in Toolbox Murders was in another film.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he was in like what was it? He was in like some. Let's get it up.
It stars Cameron Mitchell.
Click on him.
So he was an American film, television, and stage actor who began his career on Broadway before acting in feature films from the 1950s. Later in his career, he became known for his roles in numerous exploitation films in the 70s and 80s. What's he done? So he was in Cass Timberlane, Homecoming, Death of a Salesman.
No, I'm probably getting confused with someone else now.
Spaghetti westerns and Italian.
Yeah, I think just in general he had a kind of like good career in these kind of like westerns and things, but then
it's been cited by Stephen King as one of his favourite horror films.
Well, the original.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agree to disagree.
I mean, yeah.
So
it's all right. it's quite forgettable.
It's quite forgettable,
So I
quite
thought Cameron Mitchell
downbeat.
had done something more famous than that, but no. Yeah.
So now this then had, as you can see on the screen now, the Anchor Bay release of the Toolbox Murders, the remake, directed by Toby Hooper. Now I remember when this came out. I don't know if it had like a UK theatrical release, but I certainly remember the artwork being one of those where you've got some gruesome looking murderer or mutant picking it up from HMV, probably like a 2 for 15 quid selection. It's a weird film. Have you seen the remake from 2004?
No, I don't think I have. Don't believe I have. No.
It's a pretty
You didn't like it?
it's pretty grisly. There's one particular moment that always stood out to me where this masked killer, and I don't even think you really. So the artwork, as shown on screen in a moment, has this really freaky-looking, deformed killer. You don't really know much about why he's there, why he's doing it. But I don't really think you actually see that face in the film, or if not for very long, this kind of almost like a Leatherface patchwork
I was
mask.
gonna say it looks like
Yeah, I don't even think it features. Maybe you see it once, which is a bit misleading. But there's one particular grisly death where someone catches him because there's all these deaths happening in this apartment block. He then grabs them and then he pours like it's this powder, but it has like an acidic effect. He pours it all over this guy's face. No idea what that would be. But I always remember that standing out. But otherwise, yeah, it could be. Could be. But yeah, it's. I mean, I'll be honest. I love the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Toby Hooper's film, but I can't really name another Toby Hooper film that I've liked. And I know he did Poltergeist.
I like Life Force, but it's a bizarre film.
Well, I know he did Poltergeist, but there's all the talk that, well, did he really direct it? Was it Spielberg? I've never seen Life Force, to be fair. It's
a very strange film, but I quite like it.
His remake of Invaders from Mars.
Yeah.
That's not very good at all. But I mean,
Salem's Lot. He did the TV series.
Did he?
Yeah.
Why did I think that was Tommy Lee Wallace? That might be it that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that is it.
Oh, okay. Well,
Toby Hooper did Salem's Lot, the original.
Okay, and the original Salem's Lot is decent. It's one of my favourite Stephen King books, for sure. So this is a difficult one because in comparing the original and the remake, I've seen the remake, not the original. You've seen the original, not the remake.
But we seem to both be in agreement that neither one was. Probably the original we'll put above the remake.
Yeah,
it's very, like I say, it's one of those films that it's a bit like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, where you kind of feel like you need a shower after you've watched it. It's just very downbeat and very grimy, the whole film. Or like the original Driller Killer or something.
Yeah, I mean,
when it's finished, it's
kind of. Would you say similar to like something like Eden Lake, where you just feel a little bit depressed after you've watched it?
No, it's more like the grimy, low quality.
Okay,
it's hard to describe. It's like an Abel Ferrara film, like Driller Killer or Bad Lieutenant or something like that. It's just the whole thing's got this kind of like depressing sort of like atmosphere. And
I mean, the only highlight I can think of for the remake is the lead in it is Angela Bettis, who she was in a Lucky McGee horror, one of I think his debut, called May, which is a very underseen film, but it is excellent. I mean, she's a great actress. She was in the television film remake of Carrie from 2002. And yeah, she's a good leading actress. She's kind of similar to like an Elizabeth Moss who was in The Invisible Man.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of she plays like quite a damaged but strong character very well. Yeah, it is a forgettable film though. It's just it is a bit grimy, and I guess that's kind of similar to the original.
So they're both on par with each other.
They're both on par. Now,
neither one's a masterpiece.
Now this one's interesting because when you told me about the remake and who directed it, I was very surprised. Let's talk.
Expose. That's the original Intervision release. There you had.
Well, these are the only two artworks that I could find. So.
Really, there's nothing else.
No, not on.
No, there's been loads about Expose. Because it came out as originally. It was a film made by Pete. What's his name? Smedley something.
Let me bring up.
So it was about this writer played by Udo Kier, who is having trouble writing his new novel. So he goes to the countryside. His agent suggests he goes to the countryside with a new secretary played by Linda Hayden, who was in Blood on Satan's Claw.
Oh, okay.
So Udo Kier, he's in like Suspiria.
Yeah. And then his
wife. Yeah, and his wife's played by Fiona Richmond. I actually got an original poster up here. Look, got an original cinema quad poster for it.
Look at that.
Look at that. And it's a very strange mix. So he's gone to this countryside. It's a whole film. The whole film's a very strange mix of like kind of sex and violence, and more emphasis on the kind of sex than the violence. But it's kind of like a very limited in terms of it's just one. Mostly 90% of it is in this one location in this house, and there's like 3 main actors who come and go in between the whole film. So he's got his secretary who's kind of like coming on to him, but she's not really. And then his wife turns up, and then she comes on to his wife. And it's just really weird. And there's like a rape scene in the field where she kind of enjoys the rape, and then she kills the guy raping her, and then goes back to her house and is never mentioned again about the rape. And that's one of the kind of problematic scenes of the BBFC at the time of release. And there's kind of this writer Udo Kier keeps having these kind of weird hallucinations and keeps seeing like blood on knives and things, and like there's like loads of little details in the film. Like I quite like anytime there's a moment of violence is about to happen, all the lights flicker in the house, like a little flicker of just for no kind of real reason, and there's kind of lots of plot twists and things. Well, one kind of plot twist at the end with who Linda Hayden really is, but I kind of like it. It was the only British film to make the Video Nasties list, and it was one of the ones which ended up as one of the 39 films prosecuted and found guilty in courts of law and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. That original Intervision tape is like a little card gatefield release, and it's worth a lot of money. I had one many years ago and sold it. But like, because the video shop used to cut them down into like kind of 3-sided or whatever, and put them into to make them easier to display. So if you find the original gatefield, it's like a kind of a box that has this bit of opening flap on it. If you find that intact, you're talking big money.
Okay. Now this was remade many years later by Spandau Ballet bassist and EastEnders actor Martin Kemp. Now,
is he Ross Kemp's brother? Is that a stupid question?
No, Martin Kemp. There were two. I don't know why I know this. There were 2 brothers in Spandau Ballet. There was a TV film about the Krays, and they played the Krays.
Yeah.
I don't think they're anything to do with Ross Kemp. It's Martin.
That's why I get confused, because he's called Ross Kemp and he's called Martin Kemp, and I think I know they're brothers in Spandau Ballet, and they're both in EastEnders, and it kind of gets confused in my head that they were brothers, but they're not.
Where have we got the? What's his? I mean, I don't care what his brother's called, but yeah, no, he's not related to.
It's not him.
Now, one of the things I noticed when I found this artwork is at the bottom, the praise for it says "well made, well acted, and genuinely creepy." Now, when a film is displaying on its front that it is well made and it is well acted,
in focus.
Yeah, it's
in focus.
Cast arrived on time.
Yeah,
it generally makes you think.
Well made.
Okay.
It's like they had very low expectations. Apparently, it's meant to be all right. I think I saw it many years ago. I can't remember it.
No, to be honest.
It's quite an obscure one to try and track down. But
Fran the Cannon says Gary Kemp was the other. Yeah, I think Gary was maybe guitar, and to be honest, I always thought they were in. I was about to say Depeche Mode, but not Depeche Mode. Who did I think they were in? Duran Duran. I always thought they were Duran Duran, but no, it's Spandau Ballet. They all blur into one for me.
The 80s, New Romantics, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't even realise that he directed a film, let alone. I mean, I never even heard expose. I suppose that's quite a deep cut in the video Nasties, with it being British and the notoriety seeming to be a lot of kind of American or foreign imports. So, I mean, if we're looking at, I know it's been a long time since you've seen the remake Stalker. I've not seen either. How do you feel they kind of compare in terms of which one's a good film? Are either of them good?
Expose is the one you want to track down. So Stalker's just kind of like the same story and characters to a certain degree, but just kind of shot again in like a more polished kind of look, but it's kind of a very bland sort of TV film sort of look. It's like it's forgettable.
Okay.
It wasn't terrible, but it's
but
the original has that really. It's not a good film per se, but it's a very unique film, and I kind of appreciate the English rural countryside of it, the 70s, that kind of like tone to it, which I really like.
Yeah.
Films like Straw. It is influenced by kind of Straw Dogs. The original working title was House on Straw Hill.
All right.
So yeah. And I like the fact it kind of inspires me to go and make a film, because it is just 3 characters in one location, and then they weave this story out of it.
Now I've got the Wikipedia open, and initially I clicked on it to see about the sequel, and nothing came up.
Right.
But it says in the documentary on the DVD of The Blood on Satan's Claw, Hayden, which is Linda Hayden, says that this is the only movie she regrets making, and was not the film she had made originally.
Well, she's in the remake.
No, this is talking about Expose.
It's not the film she thought she was making or something.
Well, it says it's not the film she had made originally, so I guess the implication is it was maybe heavily cut, heavily maybe the what she shot and how they worked, it was vastly different, maybe.
Like in terms of the sex scenes, I mean, she's in the sex scenes with Fiona Richmond. So
also, Udo Kier revealed his own apathy for the film in a 2014 interview with Empire, bemoaning the fact that his voice was dubbed and that he was never paid. He also dismissed Richmond as a credible actress. That would be Fiona Richmond.
Yeah, she's like a sex icon at the time. She wasn't really.
All right. Saying the other girl, Linda Hayden, she was a real actress. Fiona Richmond was just a famous person trying to be naked in a movie. And the DVD...
What's not like?
the current 18-rated UK DVD has around 51 seconds cut, with edits to the rape scene, some of Suzanne's death, and the shot of her dead in the shower.
Yeah, I'll watch the Psycho that bit.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. I think Severin. Is it not Severin? What's that called?
Severin Films.
Severin Films put out a release a couple of years ago under the original title of House on Straw Hill, completely uncut Blu-ray, and they released it with a VHS replica of the original pre-third title and like a little bundle. That's the one to get if you want to see a film. Go and hunt that down, because it's still quite hard to find on like DVD and Blu-ray.
Okay.
In any kind of good release, that's the kind of only really good release out there.
Okay.
But I like it. It's a weird cult English 70s film.
We're going to move on now to a classic of the Video Nasty era, and one with a remake that I think is very unique. And I mean, I couldn't personally pick a best out of the two, and that is... I was hoping it would come with a poster instead it's Elijah Wood. Maniac. Wow. What? I mean, let's obviously talk about the original first.
Well, it was never really a Video Nasty, to be honest with you, Terrence. I don't know. It wasn't on the DPP 72 list, so
it was on one of the
it was on section 3. There was another list that they put together of films which could potentially be deemed offensive.
And for the purposes of today's show, we're going to deem it as offensive.
Yeah. I mean, the section 2 and section 3 list, the whole Video Nasty, it's all under the umbrella of the Video Nasty list. I mean, I've got this. This is the Blue Underground release, which has a nice little like holographic cover. If you can
Okay.
That's like a free. I think it's 3 discs or 2 discs, 3 discs. Got the soundtrack on here.
So did this? Did it originally receive any cuts as per being on that list? It was obviously deemed not as extreme as some of the other films, but it has some notoriety. I believe there's a shotgun scene which was quite infamous.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, where he jumps up on the roof of the car. It's a Tom Savini. Tom Savini does the special effects in this one. There's a scene
Tom
where
Savini, can't go wrong there.
I think he plays the guy firing the shotgun. Did he? No, I think no. Scott. What's his name? Scott Spiegel. Joe Spinell, who was in the Godfather films.
Yeah.
Is in it. And there's a scene where Tom Savini does the special effects. So there's a scene. No, Tom Savini's in the car. I think he's in the car. I think he's the guy that gets his head blown off with a shotgun, and he created the effect by. They drove out to this bit by the river or something in New York, and they didn't have a permit to do it. So we'll just do it in one take. And they actually used like a dummy full of like fake blood and a real shotgun and just blasted the head off. And
it looks great, doesn't it?
Yeah, and loud, setting off car alarms. They got in the car and drove off and just threw all the blood and just got the take go, sort of thing. But yeah, that's a great moment.
Brian on YouTube actually watched Maniac last night with his friend. The original is still so good.
Is Caroline Munro in the original?
I think she is.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, that's the weird thing. So there's like a weird love interest with her in it, and you think Caroline Munro and Joe Spinell wouldn't quite. I don't think he'd quite catch her.
He's not a classically handsome man.
No, she was quite a.
But his portrayal in the film, his acting it's quite unique because he can look both sympathetic, like you can feel sorry for him, but you can also be incredibly creepy at the same time.
Yeah.
The
visions he has as well of like being stabbed in the bed, doesn't he, by these mannequins?
Yeah, when his sanity's really losing, he's really losing it.
William Lustig, who directed it.
Yes, William Lustig directed.
And he went to found Blue Underground Films.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think that's his company, I think.
Tom Savini played Disco Boy. That was the title he was given in this, yeah.
And he gets his head blown off in the car.
And, William Lustig also plays the hotel manager. He'd previously worked as a director of porno films, using the profits to make...
I think they all did.
Using the profits from his 1977 film Hot Honey to make Maniac.
I mean, Wes Craven and Sean S. Connery and all that worked on porn and stuff in the early days. They all sort of did. So the remake.
The remake, yeah. This was...
You really like the remake, don't you?
I do really like the remake. I think it's the... oh, wait a minute. Just looking down at Legacy, there was a promotional short directed called Maniac 2, Mr. Robbie, which was a remake of the 1973 film The Psychopath, about a psychopathic children's television show host who murders abusive parents. The short was done to raise financing for a sequel to Maniac.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
I think I knew that they tried to make a sequel and Joe Spinell was going to be in it, and they tried for a few years, but now he's obviously passed away. So.
1989 he passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the sequel. I think it's just a mixture of the music, like the score is really. I mean, I really like that kind of 80s synth score, like the John Carpenter type music.
Elijah Wood.
But yeah, I just thought as well, shooting pretty much the entire film in POV.
That's it, isn't it? That's the unique selling point of that film.
And yeah, because you get some particular scenes. There's a part where he's stalking this woman through the streets of New York, and she's panicking. She's in this kind of locked kind of outdoor garage area, like parking area, and you're seeing him watching her panic, and he does the everyone winces when this happens in a film, the slice of the Achilles tendon. which is always what is. I mean, think about the original Pet Sematary. Whenever that sort of thing happens in the film, you think, "Oh Jesus,
Yeah.
nasty." Yeah. I mean, I really enjoy it, but at the same point, I think it's. I mean, I think isn't the original Maniac? Doesn't that start in POV? I'm sure that it opens
So
in
he's
POV.
watching people on a beach at the start of the original, so like through binoculars.
Yeah, but they've kind of then taken that and then done the entire
Yeah.
film like that. I think
Yeah.
they're both telling the same sort of story, but they're that different enough that they're like their own film. So for me, I don't know. I couldn't say what I think is the better film. I think they're both got their own merits. What about you, Peter?
They're both very different from each other. I mean, the original. Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're both very different from one another,
Yeah.
but they're both very good in their own right.
Well, we're seeing a couple of comments coming through. Bruce Todd on YouTube says, I enjoyed both. Think I enjoyed the remake more, probably because Elijah Wood is just straight up awesome. Yeah, I mean, he is a great actor. He's got such like range.
Emma Stone, isn't it? Is that right? No, it's not. I'm looking at the wrong one.
Elijah Wood's performance, especially in Sin City, as this creepy cannibal type character, I thought was excellent. And Franacan says, seeing through the killer's POV like this isn't done very often. Made me think of the kills in Peeping Tom.
Yes. Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah. It's done through his camera.
Yeah, really good point, Fran.
What's his name in the guy in Peeping Tom called?
Let's have a look.
Came out in 1960s theme.
I've seen Peeping Tom once years ago on TV, and I remember thinking it's really, really unique. It stars Carl Boehm. Is that what you think?
Yeah, that's it, Carl Boehm. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think both the original and remake, because the remake went off in a completely different direction and did its own thing, but did it very well, and the original is also his own thing, done very well.
Yeah, they're both unique. They're both different takes. It's not a case of potentially the next film we're going to look at where they've tried to do the over the top update of the original.
Yeah,
and that is. Well, first off, like we've done with all these, we're going to look at the first, and that is the Wes Craven classic, The Last House on the Left.
Look how many copies I've got of this. So this is. I went through a phase where I thought, you know what, I'm going to collect. I'm going to have a big Last House on the Left collection. I don't know why I went through this phase. So I was going to try and collect like all the video and all the DVD releases and stuff from around the world. I got so far and I got bored and gave up. So, but no, this is a really good release. This is the Metrodome release, like a 3-disc one. I think it's got a really good documentary on there, which is the Going to Pieces, History of Horror Films. That's a good one. And this one's worth getting. This is the Anchor Bay release.
Yeah, that's the copy I picked up after our show. I haven't got the box though. No, I've just got the disc.
I think it might be in quite a limited release with a book and poster and stuff. Really nice. I really like the artwork on this one. This is the French release.
La Dernière Maison. Yeah, something.
Like that one. Here's another release. I don't know where this has come from.
Oh, is that the original?
No, yeah, it's the original. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a Dutch release there.
Yeah, that one I've seen quite a few times on shelves.
It's Australian, I think, possibly Australian release.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That's the remake.
Okay.
American release there. American release.
Oh yeah, I recognise that MGM Classic series.
There's this release which I brought.
Oh.
After I brought this release, but it turns out this release is exactly the same release, but they just put a bit of card over the front. Disappointing.
You got both now.
Got both now. There's another release there.
Just quickly, Brian in the chat says, in regards to Maniac, that there's a good documentary about Joe Spinell on the Blue Underground Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Have you seen that, Peter? I know you've got the Blue Underground.
I have seen that. I did a while back. I watched there's quite a lot of good documentaries on here. Returning to the Scene of the Crime, is that the one? Like Anna and the Killer. Which one's the one he's talking about? The Death Dealer.
Not sure.
Maniac Men. The Joe Spinell story. That one.
Oh, that could be it.
And there's a thing called Mr. Robbie Maniac 2 promo reel.
Oh, that would be. I guess that's the short that he made to generate money for the sequel.
This is a good set. It's worth getting, Darren.
Yeah, I do keep meaning, because I think the only time I've seen the original Maniac was with you and our mutual friend Peter Vincent at the time.
Yeah.
I say at the time because I haven't spoken to him for a few years, but
Yeah.
yeah. No. Also, Fran the Cannon talking about the Wes Craven Last House on the Left. He says he has it as part of the Wes Craven collection, which was Scream, Last House, Hills Have Eyes, and Mind Ripper.
Mind Ripper, yeah, that must have been thrown in to fill out the numbers.
I don't know Mind Ripper.
No, nobody knows. Original preset one on the replay.
Oh yeah, what does it say on the front of that? Quite famously, to avoid
fainting, keep repeating. It's only a movie.
Yeah.
Produced by Sean S. Cunningham. This is one of the 72 which was prosecuted and made it into the final 39 of prosecuted films for collectors. I've talked about it before. I really like it. You're so about it.
So after we had after you came on the show on episode 2, 10 episodes back, would you believe it?
Yeah.
I ordered Last House on the Left and Hills Have Eyes because they were the two films that I had seen many years ago, but I didn't really like.
Right.
I still haven't rewatched Hills Have Eyes yet, but I actually really enjoyed Last House on the second viewing.
Enjoyed it?
Yeah.
You thought what a barrel of laughs this film was.
I was there. I was thigh slapping, laughing away.
Yeah. I mean, the
shoveling popcorn in my face.
The comedy producing can go, and it's clearly a product of its budget and stuff, but.
Yeah, I think the reason I didn't like it initially was because it has that early, grimy, unpolished feel, and I was used to, even though Halloween was a low-budget film, it had a very polished feel for that time. And whereas, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, they all have, you can tell there's money behind it. Whereas tonally, Last House and, Hills Have Eyes, I still need to give it another watch to reappraise it for myself.
Yeah.
But Last House, I just wasn't used to that style of film. Kind of similar to when I first saw Zombie Flesh Eaters, and I rewatched that for a zombie episode a few weeks back, and I had a great time watching it. I thought, so yeah, Last House. My opinion of it has gone from being maybe a 5 out of 10 prior to 7.5, maybe an 8. I thought it was a really good film.
Okay, I'm glad you liked it. Good.
I'm looking forward to watching Hills Have Eyes again to just see how my opinion changes, because I quite like revisiting a film that at first impression I didn't like, and if I then find that I enjoy it, then great. If I watch it again, I'm like, well, that's another waste of an hour and a half. Then So yeah, I mean, let's talk about this film's role in the video Nasties.
Like I said, it was one of the original 72. Got prosecuted, so it became one of the 39 that got prosecuted. Was banned for many years. I think it's sort of 2009 that Anchor Bay submitted it, and it got 2007 or 2000. I think 2000 they submitted it and it got rejected, or 99 got rejected. Then 2007 they submitted it again, and they passed it, but they had to have cuts in it. And then 2013, they finally got released uncut in the UK.
Okay. Did you? I'm just having a quick look on the Wikipedia. That they were trying to make a sequel, but there were rights issues, so it fell apart. Mario Bava's film Twitch of the Death Nerve was also released under the titles Last House on the Left Part 2 or Last House Part 2.
Yeah, I did know that. It's a really good book. I'd highly recommend. I think it's the first book which the company Fab Press put out.
Okay.
It's all about making of a cult classic. It's a very good book. It's all about the history of the film and stuff, and the sequels and things like that. And Wes Craven starting out.
Definitely worth a read.
Recommend that. Yeah.
Brian's on YouTube said I had Last House on the Left on Betamax years ago.
Oh.
Have you ever searched out the Betamax, Peter?
Have I searched out Betamax?
Have you searched out the Betamax of Last House? Because obviously you've got a bit of a collection.
I haven't got the Betamax. No.
Okay.
I've got the VHS. That's enough.
That's enough.
These original tapes are expensive enough. I'm not gonna have both.
The VHS are about 20 DVDs.
Yeah,
That's enough.
DVDs are cheap. I mean, when I stopped collecting these, I knew I wouldn't be able to sell these, or I wouldn't get much for them. So I'll just leave them on the shelf.
So this film was remade in 2009, directed by Dennis Iliadis and written by Carl Ellsworth. So I don't think it had any involvement from the looks of this from
Wes Craven. I think
Wes
he produced
Craven.
it.
Oh yeah, he produced with Sean S.
Limited
Cunningham.
producing role. Because I mean, he's in his later years. He kind of stepped away from his first two kind of films because they were a lot more kind of violent and more kind of aggressive in tone. The Last House on the Left and Hills of Eyes than to what the films he kind of ended up getting into making. So I think he said he doesn't really watch Last House and Hills of Eyes in his later years. So when they were doing a remake of it, he sort of lent himself as a producer, but didn't have that much of a hands-on involvement in it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think I may have caught it on TV many years ago. I just remember it being, I suppose,
well made. It's got older Jesse Pinkman in it, or Aaron Paul.
I suppose it kind of almost had that similar sort of feel to the remake of The Hills Have Eyes in terms of very polished and a bit over the top in comparison to its original, which was grimier and also had a bit more element of realism or what could happen.
What I liked about the original is the kind of the rawness in the kind of almost documentarian way in which he shot it. Kind of had like a newsreel sort of like almost kind of like cinema verite style to it, if you want to get all fancy. But the remake is just kind of a polished by numbers generic.
Yeah, Bruce Todd says need to get the Laserdisc next. Now Laserdisc is a format that completely I was never even aware of while it was still. I think Laserdiscs still get made, but I mean, have you ever had a Laserdisc?
No, Laserdisc player, no. I mean, they were kind of very expensive, weren't they, when they came out, and they were the kind of precursor to DVDs, and they were big things.
They were enormous, weren't they? I'm sure I've seen they look like almost like vinyl, don't they?
There's been loads of like formats, isn't there? There's one called CED players. I think it's a CD players. It's like a record, but it's got a film on it. It's like a big thing, and you have like the what's it called? CD players, I think. They're kind of that came out at the same time as like Laserdisc. Laserdisc was kind of like the early '90s, and they're kind of seen as a future of film over VHS. But then they didn't really catch on because they're such a big size.
Okay.
CED player.
Bruce Todd says the remake also has Garrett Dillahunt, an underrated actor. Now I don't recognise the name, but I do. Yeah, what have I seen him in? He's in Deadwood, the 4400, Justified, the Mindy He's been in quite a lot of things that I haven't actually seen. He was in The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
One of my favourite films of all time.
Winter's Bone, I've seen that. 12 Years a Slave. Oh, and Looper. Okay, so he's who is he? Does he play the main bad boy?
What's his name? Sorry.
Garrett Dillahunt plays Krug.
He plays the modern Krug.
Krug.
Yeah, Krug, which then obviously later on became Freddy Krueger.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So I mean, I think we're probably both in agreement. I mean, I haven't seen the remake for a very, very, very long time, but we're probably both in agreement that the original is tippy top out of the two.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Yeah. Now, this brings us on, Peter, to our last film discussion of the evening. And that is one of the very classics of the video nasties, probably one of the originators of the rape revenge genre, I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah, but that's interesting story. Apparently that is Demi Moore on the front cover.
Demi Moore?
So basically, when the film came out in America, it came out through. Do you know Charles Band?
Oh, God.
He went on to make.
He does the Full Moon films.
He did Full Moon.
Oh,
and he did the Puppet Master films and stuff.
Puppet
Master, before that, he had a company with his dad called Empire, and they made films back in the 80s, yeah, sort of 70s, 80s. And one of the films, one of one of the first films, one of the films they made was a film called Parasite,
Okay.
and that was Demi Moore's first film role. And she is this film called Parasite about these kind of like worm things, I think.
Oh, wow.
And around that time, he started his video label called Wizard Video. And one of the films they put out lots of Grindhouse films like Chainsaw Massacre and SS Experiment Camp, and they put out I Spit on Your Grave. And then this rumor that is when he did the cover art for it, and he used Demi Moore because she was doing that Parasite film at the time, and he needed a model for the photograph for the cover art. So apparently that is Demi Moore.
Wow. Okay. There
She's
we
never
go.
confirmed it. But yeah. This is the Astra Wizard. So it's got the Wizard logo on the side, and then Astra put it out in the UK, and they used the kind of artwork the Wizard put on their release.
Oh, okay.
And also Camille Keaton in it, who plays the lead actress. She's Buster Keaton's granddaughter.
There we go.
There we go. Look at these facts I'm piling out here.
I mean, before we get into the film, I'm just having a quick little look on the Wikipedia, because I haven't seen all the way through the original. That's on my to-watch list. I've seen what we're going to talk about a bit later on, the remake.
Yep.
But yeah, it's one of those films that's almost sacrilege to have not seen from the video nasty era. Now,
Yeah.
are you aware that there was an unofficial sequel where Camilla Keaton reprised her role of Jennifer, but under the alias of Vicky Kell for unknown reasons? It was called Savage Vengeance, except the film title card was misspelled as Vengance.
I am aware of that because I read this book.
Oh.
Little Cultologies book called Cultologies, and that's quite an interesting book all about the history of the film and about sequels and things like that. So yeah, I have read about it in there.
Fran the Can says, didn't know that the original got a 2019 sequel. Well, yeah, so we'll get on to the sequels a bit later on, but doesn't the official sequel to the original film also kind of converge with the timeline of the newer films, or am I making that up? Is there some crossover?
I've not seen it. So basically, you got the original I Spit on Your Grave, and then it's remade as I Spit on Your Grave of Sarah Butler, and then that will have the sequel I Spit on Your Grave 2 from the same filmmaker, and then the I Spit on Your Grave Vengeance is Mine, and Sarah Butler came back for that one. Those ones I've seen, and then you got I Spit on Your Grave Deja Vu, which is the kind of direct sequel to the first one, directed by Miyazaki, who directed the first one, and also starring Camille Keaton coming back. So I don't know what kind of timeline you'd have for these. I think these two are their own timeline, and then the sequels make their own timeline.
So, Camille Keaton, who is 74 now, she was married to Miyazaki.
She was, yeah, for a while. And then, I think she was married when they made the film.
God, that must have been weird filming some of the particular scenes.
Yeah, rape her harder, rape her. Come on. She spends about 40 minutes of the film just walking around naked in the woods.
So let's talk about how this factored in then with the video nasty period. This was on the original list, wasn't it?
This was one of the 72, which was prosecuted and made the 39, banned for years and years. I think even to this day it's still not fully uncut in the UK. I think it has the correct running time for an uncut release, but certain shots they've had to reframe, so they kind of zoom in, punch in, and reframe the shot, so the offensive bit is just out of shot, sort of thing.
Right.
It's kind of seen as like a sort of rip off of Last House on the Left because it's a rape revenge film, but it's not as well made as Last House. I think Last House is a much better film. I think because Wes Craven's obviously a better filmmaker in terms of, his talent and stuff. But it's certainly, I like it. I like the original.
Okay. Now Brian says on the YouTube stream, I'm still waiting for a Blu-ray of I Miss You Hugs and Kisses to come out.
Who isn't?
What is that?
That's one of the films which was on the 72 list.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but it's
Oh.
it's one of those films that you kind of go, like Maniac wasn't on that list, which is a pretty hard-going, violent film. I Miss You and Hugs and Kisses was like a TV drama.
And it was on the obscene.
No.
Oh.
I don't think there's any obscene scenes in it. You watch it now and it's like, how did this? And even the title doesn't even.
No, it doesn't make you automatically
for some reason,
think.
The Department of Public Prosecutions of Mary Whitehouse found it very offensive back in the 80s and raided video shops for it.
So let's talk now about, and I'm pretty sure this is another film that I saw on a horror pizza night with you and Peter Vincent.
Oh, the remake.
The remake. Let's talk about the remake. It's pretty good, isn't it?
It's pretty good with Sarah Butler.
Yeah.
She's very good, isn't it? There's that bit where she's ramming the shotgun up the rapist. But I think it's very well acted. It's very well made. I think there's like the direction is very good in there. It's kind of on par with the original. I mean, the original's the sort of classic in there. The original's I don't think there's going to be any kind of remake, which is. I mean, it's hard. The originals are the originals, and they're kind of like they've got their own style and things. The remakes are kind of better in terms of technical abilities.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess with some of these films, it doesn't hurt to give it like a fresh coat of paint. Have the modern cameras and good acting, direction and whatnot. With Last House and Hills Have Eyes, it's almost overly done. Whereas this still feels from memory quite grounded. Nothing seemed outlandish from memory. No. The particular rape scene is obviously quite uncomfortable to watch, as you'd expect. Yeah. Which then means when she goes to take her, visceral revenge, it's not done in a way like kind of like the ending of the latest Last House, where it's just way over the top. It's all quite practical what she does from memory.
Yeah.
So we'd probably say that's another one that's kind of on par in terms of comparing.
I think it's the only video nasty which has had a modern day franchise. I can't think of another one which like The Evil Dead was kind of a standalone remake, but so this one had parts 1, 2, and 3, and it's probably one of the most unlikely ones you'd expect to get a franchise. But you got the original, and then you got these kind of like 3, which are all kind of made by the same guy. Or
and the crazy thing is,
and then
the remake. When it came out, I remember obviously seeing it. I think we might have rented it, or you might have owned a copy of it. But I don't. It's kind of crazy that it's done well, because it's a good film, enjoyed it, but it was a $2 million budget, only made $572,000 at the box office. Wow. It received generally negative reviews from critics.
Okay.
But it spawned its own trilogy.
Yeah.
So you've seen the main 2 sequels. How do they kind of fare in terms of?
Ice Burning Grave 2. I mean, I think they're okay. The second one's, I can't remember. There's a bit where the character gets buried alive and she has to kind of it's reminding me a bit of Kill Bill.
All right, okay.
She kind of breaks her way out and then gets her revenge. It's kind of a bit Tarantino-esque. Just that one scene, and then part of 3 that she's like in a counselling group, I think, and Sarah Butler comes back for it. She's not in the second one.
Okay.
And then they kind of like, that one's okay.
Okay.
They're okay. I mean, I've seen worse. I've still not watched the Deja Vu. I think it's over 2 hours long, Deja Vu.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I've heard quite bad things about it, so it's kind of put me off a little bit.
Brian in the YouTube chat asks, and I can't see anything about it on Wikipedia. He asks, is the remake cut in the UK? Do you know if it's an uncut version?
No, I think it's not. I think it's still cut. The sequel, the first sequel, the first remake is still cut, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they cut. There were some scenes they cut from it. And I still think even now they won't release it uncut, which is something, isn't it? For a remake to end up being cut.
It's not really heard of. I mean, especially in these days where pretty much anything can have a release within reason.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that kind of brings us to the end of the first episode, looking at remakes, focusing today on the Video Nasties originals and the modern-ish remakes relating to them. Peter, a lot of fun as always having you on the show.
Rambling as always.
No, it's all good. It's all good, and we've had some good chatter in the live chat. Is there anything you want to kind of plug and promote before we kind of wrap things up for the evening?
No. I've got nothing going on.
Not a particular website that sells DVDs.
Well, like a VIP. I was going to get some cards, but I think they're in the garage.
Oh, wait a minute! Wait!
Vipco. Yeah, if you want
to, I keep forgetting to put these in the deliveries.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's why I put mine in the garage now. So I remember to put them in the deliveries.
I've put them on my desk now, so I don't forget about them.
If anybody wants to get any modern day cult horror films, then head over to www.vipcovaults.com and buy some DVDs. I was going to say use this code to get some money off, but I don't think we've got a code.
I think we've got one. Maybe we'll look at that.
I did do a code. I can't remember what it is. So type in that code that I can't remember what it is.
Type in the code. We'll add it in post.
Yeah.
So we've got some great releases from around the world. I think we've got an Italian one in a few months, but the next one, which we are looking at, I believe a May release, is quite anticipated. I think people pre-ordered it for well over a year ago under the prior management. Is Amityville Hex. By Tony Newton, who's quite a renowned name in the underground, low-budget horror.
Like a host type thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's
sounds. Sorry, it was not sounds, but it's like a webcam, Zoom type thing raising. I don't know. I'm not saying it.
Be sure to keep an eye on. So our website is vipcovaults.com. Also check out. It's pretty much Vipco Limited on most social medias: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So I mean, all we've got really to discuss now in terms of the MOS network, which is what we live stream on and our podcast goes out on. Earlier on, big shout out to Andy in the retro chat who live streamed 7 p.m. earlier. So check his show out on the repeats and also podcast platforms. Also, Bericles, his show The Turner Years. They do a bi-weekly show. They have the second episode on podcast, came out today. And obviously Sunday is the flagship show, Ministry of Slam with Lee and Lawrence. Be sure to check that out from 7 p.m. Bruce Todd awaiting the Amityville Hex DVD. Yes, keep an eye, Bruce. It's one that we do get asked about a lot. The company's had a changeover of management in the last 12 months, and we've re-looked at how we're doing our releases, and that is officially the next on our release schedule. Bruce listened in last week, Peter, when I was on with Olas, or Nick, or whatever you want to call him, Olas Carter. So Bruce actually, he did a nice little order actually recently from the Vipco site, the T-shirt, and a couple of DVDs. Me and Nick have agreed that we'll sign some stuff, send it out to him, kind of as a thank you for joining the Vipco customer. Huh?
Sign it.
Yeah, sign stuff, Peter.
That's just going to wreck it, isn't it?
I know people may look at us signing things as devaluing them, but
as long as you sign the cellophane wrapping, and you can rip that bit off.
That's what I did for David, wasn't it? Where he said, "Please, can you sign this?" And I just signed the wrapper.
Yeah.
Oh dear. We'll Bruce, we'll put together a couple of bits, and we'll try and organise to sign it. Amityville Hex, we will confirm a release date on socials. I was going to say coming up in May, but May's like literally a week away. But we are looking to do a May release.
We'll do it. We'll do it this time next week. It'll be out.
Oh, jeez. I'm going to have to delay releasing this episode for about a month.
I'll do it now. We'll do it now.
We'll do it now. We'll get it done now. Yes. But yeah, check it out for that film. There's plenty of other films on there. Bad Moon Rising, American Cannibals from a new up and coming director in America. Film that Peter and myself make called Harvest of the Dead, Halloween Night, and also Devil in the Woods. What other stuff? I think that's pretty much. And VHS Forever is an excellent documentary.
Great documentary.
Yeah.
Video collecting and stuff. So
yeah, if you're interested at all in the VHS era, there's a documentary on there called VHS Forever: Psychotronic People. Definitely worth checking it out. I think we've got it on Blu-ray and DVD.
I've got a few. Yeah, I've got copies still in the garage. Please buy some. I can make some space.
Make some space in the garage.
in our kids' toys to put in
our warehouse, in our official Vipco warehouse, Peter.
It's just piled up next to my little grinder and stuff in there. I need to sharpen some tools at the weekend. So if people can buy some DVDs, I'll make a bit of space and I can get in there and sharpen.
If you buy some DVDs, Peter will be able to feed his family. So got 2 children, so just bear that in mind. Right, I think we've rambled on long enough. Thank you for watching, whether you're watching this live, whether you're listening to this on the podcast feeds. It'll be out on the podcast feeds tomorrow. That's Apple Podcasts and Spotify, all the other places. Thanks for listening. Berkeley's in the chat, Bruce Todd as well as Fran and the Gruff and Brian. Everyone. It's been a good time.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. See you again.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye.